I was the largest foreign investor in Russia in the mid-90s and early 2000s. I discovered corruption, massive stealing in the companies I invested in. I exposed the corruption through the international media. And as you can imagine, I made a few enemies at the top of the Russian government. Vladimir Putin expelled me from the country in 2005, declared me a threat to national security. My offices in Moscow were raided in 2007. I hired a young lawyer named Sergei Magnitsky to investigate. He discovered that the purpose of the office raid was to commit a very complex $230 million fraud, not against me, but against the government, using documents seized in my office. He had reported the fraud. He exposed the fraud. He testified against the officials. And in retaliation, he was arrested, tortured for 358 days, and killed at the age of 37 on November 16, 2009. I've since made it my life's work to go after the people who killed him and make sure they face justice. And the result of that has been something called the Magnitsky Act, which freezes the assets and bans the visas of human rights abusers and kleptocrats in Russia. It passed in the United States on December 14, 2012. It now exists in 34 other countries. And Vladimir Putin has come after me personally and in the most dramatic ways with death threats, kidnapping threats, Interpol red notices, extradition requests, and everything else you can think of. So first of all, we've just begun the sanctions program, and there's a lot more we can do. So there are probably up north of 100 oligarchs who look after Vladimir Putin's assets that are the richest people in Russia. We've sanctioned less than 10 of them. We should sanction all 100. On top of that, there are currently 70% of the banks in Russia are disconnected from the SWIFT banking network. All banks should be disconnected from SWIFT. And then on top of that, there should be an absolute government policy to make everybody disinvest from Russia. We should starve Vladimir Putin of money in every possible way we can. And he may not do reverse, but at a certain point, he will stall out if he runs out of money. And if he can't access his central bank reserves, which are now frozen, and he can't access his money with the oligarchs offshore, and nobody's bringing any money in from companies, he will run out of money. I'm afraid that there's actually no way out. And what I know about Vladimir Putin is that he doesn't have a reverse gear. When he goes into a conflict, it always escalates, and it just keeps on escalating, and it just never stops escalating, and it escalates beyond your most terrible scenario. Vladimir Putin is a guy, and is particularly bad in this case because he's a guy who's been humiliated in his first week of invasion. He hasn't done what he said he was going to do. He was humiliated militarily, and he's been humiliated by Western governments who have frozen all sorts of assets. He never expected anyone to act. We never did before. He did Georgia, he did Crimea, he shot down passenger planes, he poisoned people in England, no consequence. And so he's been humiliated militarily, he's been humiliated economically, and he doesn't do humiliation well.